Hello brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus. What I am about to share with you is another proof that reveals how limited our time is in the days to come. Don't be in haste to skip this video, because this is the video many wish they could come across to get themselves and their families prepared and safe from what is to come. The dates revealed here are God's mercies toward mankind. In the comment section, tell us where you are watching from so we can continue praying for you and your family concerning the days to come. I never imagined I would be the one to share such an experience. 4 weeks now, I've wrestled with whether to speak about what happened to me, about what I saw, about what I was shown. But the urgency I feel growing in my spirit, coupled with recent encounters that have confirmed the reality of my experience, compels me to break my silence. 3 weeks ago, I died. Not metaphorically, not in some poetic sense, but actually died. My heart stopped beating, my lungs ceased, and for a brief moment that felt like an eternity, I stood at the threshold between this world and the next. The terminal illness had been ravaging my body for months. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the doctors had said. The treatments had bought me time, but by late October, my body had begun its final surrender. The pain had become unbearable, even with the strongest medications they could prescribe. I remember lying in that hospital bed on the night of November 5th, feeling the weight of my mortality pressing down on me like a physical force. My family had gathered around me, their faces shows with sorrow and helplessness. They knew, as I knew, that the end was near. What I didn't expect was that the end would become a beginning, that death would open a door rather than close one forever. On the day I died, this is what happened. I felt a sharp pain lance through my chest, and then a strange sensation of lightness. The beeping of the heart monitor beside my bed began to slow, each beep stretching longer and longer until they merged into one continuous tone. I could hear my wife crying, could hear the nurses rushing into the room, their voices urgent and professional. But I was already drifting away, rising above the scene like a helium balloon released from a child's hand. The hospital room faded beneath me, and I found myself in darkness. Not the frightening darkness of nightmares, but a profound, peaceful darkness that felt like rest itself. I wasn't afraid. In fact, I felt more at peace than I had in months, perhaps in years. The pain that had been my constant companion vanished completely, and I became aware that I was no longer bound by the limitations of my diseased body. Then the light came. It started as a pinpoint in the distance, a single star in the void, but it grew rapidly, expanding until it filled my entire field of vision. The light was warm, inviting, and filled with a presence that I can only describe as love in its purest form. As I moved toward it, or it moved toward me, I couldn't tell which, I became aware of a figure standing within the brilliance. He didn't need to introduce himself. I knew who he was in the deepest part of my being. Instantly he began to show me what looks like a vision after a warm feeling of love and acceptance by him. The first vision came upon me like a wave. I saw tables laden with food, groaning under the weight of abundance. Families gathered around these tables, laughing, eating without concern or care about where their next meal would come from. The stores were full, the shelves packed with every variety of food imaginable. It was a picture of plenty, of security, of comfort. I recognized it as the world we've been living in, the world where scarcity seems like a problem for other people in other places, never for us. But then, in an instant, the scene transformed. The tables that had been overflowing now held only scraps. The laughter turned to worried whispers. The stores I had seen, their shelves now bare or sparsely stocked with items that remained untouched because their prices had climbed beyond what most people could afford. He showed me families staring at their empty pantries, mothers trying to stretch meals to feed hungry children, fathers working multiple jobs but still unable to provide adequately. What struck me most wasn't just the scarcity itself, but the speed of the transition. He revealed to me that this change wouldn't come gradually, giving people time to adjust. Instead, it would happen suddenly, catching most people completely unprepared. One day the abundance we've known would simply cease to be, replaced by a lean time unlike anything our generation has experienced. In the vision, I found myself in a position of serving food to others. I stood behind a counter with large pots of food, and people lined up before me with their plates extended, their faces marked by hunger and desperation. My natural instinct was to heap their plates full, to give them generous portions that would satisfy their hunger. But as I reached to do so, I felt a restraining presence, a force that stopped my hand. He showed me that there were strict regulations in place, severe penalties for anyone who tried to give more than the allotted portion. I was being watched constantly, monitored to ensure compliance. The people begged me to add just a little more to their plates. Children looked up at me with hollow eyes. Elderly people pleaded for another spoonful. Every fiber of my being wanted to help them, wanted to fill their plates until they overflowed. But I couldn't. The rules forbade it, and the consequences for breaking those rules were severe. The frustration and helplessness I felt in that moment was crushing, a weight that pressed on my soul. When the vision faded, he told me what it meant. He revealed to me that a time of great scarcity was coming to the land, coming soon. The abundance we've taken for granted would disappear, and in its place would come a lean time where people would have to survive on the bare minimum. Food wouldn't be readily available in the stores. Shelves would go unstocked for weeks at a time. When items did appear, their prices would be so inflated that only the wealthy could afford them regularly. But the scarcity wouldn't be limited to food. He showed me that resources of all kinds would become scarce: medical supplies, basic household items, fuel, even clean water in some areas. The infrastructure we've relied upon would strain under pressures both natural and man-made. He revealed to me scenes of chaos in the streets, people fighting over the most basic necessities. Neighbors who had once waved cheerfully to each other would eye each other with suspicion, wondering if the other family had supplies they could take. Crime would rise dramatically as desperation drove people to steal, to rob, even to commit violence for things they needed to survive. Then he took me deeper into understanding, drawing my attention to an ancient story. He showed me the account of Joseph in the land of Egypt, and I saw it play out before me as if I were watching a film. I witnessed Pharaoh's troubling dreams of the fat and lean cattle, 7 of each emerging from the river. The fat, healthy cattle were devoured by the lean, sickly ones, yet the lean cattle remained just as thin and wretched as before, showing no sign of the nourishment they had consumed. He revealed to me that this story wasn't just ancient history but a prophetic pattern that would repeat. Just as Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dream to mean 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine, he showed me that we are living in the final days of our own time of plenty. The lean years are about to begin, and they will be so severe that people will forget what abundance felt like. The famine, not just of food, but of resources and stability, will consume all memory of the good times that preceded it. What struck me most was when he explained why Pharaoh had the dream twice. He told me that when God establishes something firmly, when he determines that an event will surely come to pass, he often confirms it through repetition. The double dream meant the event would happen soon and was certain to occur. Then he revealed to me that this wasn't the first time he had given me such a vision. Months earlier, before my illness had progressed to its final stages, I had experienced troubling dreams that I couldn't fully understand. Now, lying at death's door and being shown this vision, those earlier dreams suddenly made sense. The double witness meant the time was short. He showed me glimpses of the timeline. The scarcity would begin to manifest noticeably in early December, just a few weeks from now. By the time winter fully set in, the lean times would be undeniable. He didn't show me this to frighten people, he told me, but to warn them so they could prepare, just as he had warned Pharaoh through Joseph's interpretation, giving Egypt time to store up supplies during the years of plenty. The vision shifted, and I saw inside homes across the nation. I watched families opening their pantries to find them empty. I saw people standing in grocery stores, staring at price tags they couldn't afford to pay. I saw the frustration on faces as people realized they had waited too long to prepare. But I also saw other homes, families who had heeded the warnings, who had prepared. Their pantries were stocked with dry goods, beans, rice, flour, canned vegetables, and fruits. They had stored water and medical supplies. While others panicked, these families remained calm, able to care for their own and even help their neighbors. He told me to deliver a specific message: prepare now while there is still time. He showed me that prices would continue to rise, but what we're experiencing now is nothing compared to what's coming. When the real scarcity hits, prices will skyrocket to levels that seem impossible. A simple bag of rice that costs a few dollars now might cost 10 times that amount. Meat will become a luxury item. fresh produce will be scarce and expensive. He instructed me about what kinds of foods to store. Fresh items that spoil quickly would be useless during extended periods of scarcity or power outages. Instead, he emphasized dry goods that could last for years: beans, rice, oats, flour, salt, sugar. Canned goods of all varieties. Jarred items. Foods that could sustain life even if they weren't gourmet or particularly appetizing. He showed me that in the times to come, people would be grateful for plain beans and rice, for simple canned vegetables, for basic sustenance rather than culinary variety. But the vision went beyond just storing purchased food. He showed me gardens, home gardens tended by people who had learned to grow their own produce. He revealed to me that those with gardens would be significantly better positioned than those dependent entirely on stores and supply chains. The act of growing food would become not just a hobby but a necessary skill for survival. Then he took me to see something that filled me with both wonder and understanding. I found myself standing beside a river, and along its banks grew trees of every kind, heavy with fruit. The leaves were vibrant and healthy, never fading or withering. He told me that these trees represented his provision for those who trusted in him. The river, he explained, was Christ himself, the source of living water. Those who planted their gardens and tended their crops while remaining rooted in faith would find that their efforts bore fruit even when conditions seemed impossible. He revealed to me a specific passage, guiding me to understand that the fruit from these gardens would serve as meat, as sustenance for the body, while the leaves would serve as medicine. This puzzled me at first, but then he began to show me the deeper meaning. The scarcity wouldn't be limited to food. Medical supplies and pharmaceuticals would also become extremely difficult to obtain. Drugstore shelves would be bare, prescriptions would go unfilled, and people would suffer from treatable conditions simply because the medicines weren't available. But he showed me that he had already provided natural solutions. The food we grow and eat contains within it the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients our bodies need to maintain health and fight disease. The plants themselves have medicinal properties that modern society has largely forgotten in its reliance on pharmaceutical solutions. He told me that during the lean times, people would need to rediscover these natural remedies, to learn which plants could boost immunity, which could fight infection, which could reduce inflammation or ease pain. He specifically drew my attention to herbs, showing me small herb gardens growing on windowsills and in backyards. He told me that oregano, for instance, was a powerful natural immune system booster, yet most people thought of it only as a pizza seasoning. He showed me that many common herbs and vegetables contained healing properties that could sustain people when conventional medicine became scarce. The vision continued, and he showed me the challenge of seasons. Home gardens are wonderful, he revealed, but they require knowledge and planning. Different crops grow in different seasons, and those who don't understand this would face disappointment and potential hunger. Summer gardens overflow with tomatoes, peppers, squash, and beans. But what would people eat in winter when these warm weather crops won't grow? He showed me that preparation meant learning which crops could survive cold weather, certain leafy greens, root vegetables, some herbs that could tolerate frost. He revealed to me the value of greenhouses, how even simple structures could extend growing seasons and allow people to produce food year-round. The little sunlight available during winter months could be captured and amplified in a greenhouse, creating an environment where plants could thrive even when snow covered the ground outside. But more than the practical knowledge, he impressed upon me the spiritual principle underlying all of this. He told me that those who remained connected to him, who maintained their faith even in difficult times, would find that their gardens produced abundantly even when their neighbors' gardens failed. He showed me that the river of living water, his presence and provision, would sustain those who trusted him. Their lands wouldn't become barren. Their crops wouldn't fail. Even in the midst of widespread famine, they would have enough, not because of their own skill or cleverness, but because of his faithfulness to provide for his people. The weight of this revelation bore down on me. I understood that I was being shown these things not for my own benefit, but because I would need to return and warn others. The urgency of the message pressed upon my spirit. He told me that time was shorter than most people realized. The transition from plenty to scarcity would happen in early December, just weeks away from when I was receiving this vision. There wasn't time to waste, no luxury of procrastination. He showed me additional details about the coming chaos. I saw store shelves that would be stocked irregularly, perhaps going weeks between restocking certain essential items. I watched in the vision as people checked stores obsessively, hoping to find what they needed. I saw the frustration and fear on their faces when they found empty shelves again and again. He revealed to me that this wouldn't be a brief disruption that would quickly return to normal. The lean times would persist, testing people's endurance, their faith, and their ability to adapt. I witnessed scenes of community response to the crisis. In some areas, neighbors banded together, sharing resources and knowledge. Gardens became community projects. People with skills taught others. Those with abundance shared with those in need. But in other areas, I saw the opposite: isolation, hoarding, suspicion, and conflict. He told me that how people responded would reveal their true character, and that this trial would separate those who lived by faith and love from those who lived by fear and selfishness. The vision began to fade, and I felt myself being pulled back toward my body. But before I fully returned, he gave me final instructions. He told me that I needed to share what I had seen and heard, that others needed this warning so they could prepare. He showed me that many people would dismiss the message, would consider it paranoid or extreme. But he revealed that some would listen, would heed the warning, and would prepare both practically and spiritually for what was coming. He told me that this message wasn't meant to create fear but to inspire action rooted in faith. He showed me that preparation wasn't a lack of trust in his provision, but rather wise stewardship of the time and resources he had given. Just as Joseph had advised Pharaoh to store up during the years of plenty to survive the years of famine, modern believers should prepare now while preparation was still possible. The final image he showed me was of two families experiencing the coming scarcity. One family had prepared, had stored food and supplies, had planted gardens and learned necessary skills. When the lean times came, they faced them with calm confidence, trusting in God's provision through the preparations he had prompted them to make. The other family had ignored the warnings, assuming things would somehow work out, that the government or someone else would solve the problems. When scarcity struck, they found themselves desperate and afraid, scrambling to survive day by day. He told me that he was giving people a choice through this warning. They could prepare now, or they could face the consequences of unpreparedness later. His desire was that his people would choose wisdom, would act on the warning he was providing. He emphasized that this wasn't about self-sufficiency or survivalism as an end in itself, but about being positioned to trust him and serve others during difficult times. Then, suddenly, I felt the pull become irresistible. I was yanked backward through the darkness at tremendous speed. The light receded, and I became aware of my body again. I felt the hospital bed beneath me, felt pain returning to my limbs, heard the steady beep of the heart monitor that had been silent. I could hear voices, nurses speaking in urgent tones, my wife sobbing, a doctor saying something about spontaneous recovery. I opened my eyes to see the stunned faces of the medical staff surrounding my bed. They told me later that I had been clinically dead for nearly 4 minutes. They had been preparing to call the time of death when my heart suddenly started beating again on its own. The doctors called it a miracle, admitted they had no medical explanation for my return. But I knew exactly what had happened. I had been given a glimpse beyond the veil, shown things that were coming, and sent back to deliver a warning. The 3 weeks since that experience have been surreal. My cancer, which should have killed me that night, has mysteriously stabilized. The doctors can't explain it, keep running tests trying to understand why I'm not only alive but improving. But I know that I've been given more time for a specific purpose, to share what I was shown. What has confirmed the reality of my experience are the recent encounters I've had since returning. I've spoken with 3 different people, strangers who had no knowledge of each other or of my experience, who have independently shared that they've received similar warnings through dreams and visions. An elderly woman at my church approached me 2 days ago to tell me about a dream she'd had about empty grocery stores. A man I met at the pharmacy shared that he felt an urgent prompting to stock up on supplies, though he couldn't explain why. A young mother posted online about a vivid dream of food shortages that had left her shaken. These confirmations have removed any doubt I might have had. The urgency I feel is not just about my own experience but about the pattern I see emerging, multiple witnesses receiving similar warnings, all pointing to the same time frame of early December. The double witness, just like Pharaoh's double dream, indicates that this event is established and will surely happen soon. So I share this now, knowing that some will dismiss it, that skeptics will laugh, that even some believers will question. But I cannot remain silent. I saw what's coming. I was shown the timeline. I was given this message specifically to pass on to others. The lean times are nearly here, arriving in just weeks. There is still time to prepare, but that window is closing rapidly. For those who will listen, I urge you to take action now. Stock your pantries with foods that will last. Store water and medical supplies. If you can, start a garden or prepare to start one in the spring. Learn about natural remedies and food preservation. Connect with neighbors and community members who share your faith and values. Most importantly, strengthen your relationship with God, because the provision He showed me flowing to His people was rooted in their connection to Him, the river of living water. This isn't a message of doom but of preparation. He didn't show me these things to terrify us but to equip us. Just as He warned Noah of the coming flood, warned Joseph of the coming famine, He is warning us now of the coming scarcity. How we respond is our choice. We can prepare in faith, or we can ignore the warning and face the consequences unprepared. I have delivered the message I was given. What you do with it is between you and God. But please, don't dismiss this lightly. The times ahead will test us all. Those who prepare now, both practically and spiritually, will be positioned not just to survive but to thrive and to help others. That is my prayer for all who read these words, that you would have wisdom to prepare and faith to trust in God's provision through whatever comes. The lean times are coming. December will mark the beginning. But for those who prepare and trust, there is hope, there is provision, and there is the promise that He will sustain those who put their faith in Him. May you be counted among those who heed the warning and prepare wisely for what lies ahead.